Hello, everybody. Good morning to Angela. Good afternoon to Ruth, and to everybody, wherever you are. This I really enjoy this moment, and I would like to present our speakers for today's topic. So today's topic will be get your contract right, how to benefit best from clauses. We have two speakers here. First, from Germany, Angela Lavado. In fact, she is Rights Director of Bibliographisches Institute in Germany. So after a traineeship in the license department of the Aufbau Verlag Group in 2008, Angela took on the responsibility for the licenses at the children's books publisher As Edition. In 2016, she became head of licensing at the Bibliographisches Institut Duden in Berlin. And then
exactly.
This is Angela. And then welcome, Angela. And then I will introduce Ruth Valerie Katabijan. It is Katabijan or Katabian?
It's Katabihan, like an H.
Okay, thank you.
For the J.
Katabihan. Okay.
Yes.
Hello, Ruth. Ruth
Hello.
Valerie Katabihan is a business development manager at St. Matthew Publishing Corporation, the Philippines. Ruth is the business development manager and as well as the editor of its children's books imprint, Kahel Press. She is a finalist of the Innovative Leaders Scholarship of the Yale Publishing Course, Book Publishing, Non-USA category, class of 2015. A fellow of the Asian Publishers Fellowship Program in Seoul in 2018, and one of 7 mentees of the Performance Coaching Program of the World Intellectual Property Office in cooperation with Visang Education in Seoul in 2019. She is also a board member on the Filipinas Copyright Licensing Society. Well, in fact, I will start with Ruth, and I have several questions, and with these questions, I have information that Ruth has already prepared a presentation. So my question is around the important things inside a contract, like how do you present grants of rights, things that make it best, and also term of license, how many years and what are the reasons, terms of publication, how many months from the date of the contract and why, and the reason, and also do you need to include some provisions in the clause such as those concerning translation, open for modification, or initial patent run, and the recommended retail price. And for production, how about a non-refundable fee for artworks, illustrations, pictures, master files, especially because you also do children's books.
Children's.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
And also for royalties and advance, subsidiary rights, which is now very important nowadays, and accounting, of course, and this is something which is new now about electronic signature. Yes, now please start. And I think, Miss, would you please, you need your presentation now?
Yes, please.
Yes, please, it is your time now.
All right. So first of all, thank you to the 17,000 Islands of Imagination Foundation, Mr. No, and the Frankfurt Book Fair for having me here. So I always get so many questions about contracts because in the Philippines, it's sometimes unfortunate that not many publishers, not many content creators are familiar with publishing contracts. So there are instances when books are published, but there's no contract between the publisher and the content creator. Or even if there are contracts, they're very simple, and it's hard for both the publisher and the content creator to explore the other possibilities that they can do with their intellectual property. So I guess my role here is really to introduce contracts as well to people who may be starting out. Because I remember when I was with Kahel Press. Next slide, please. All right, so our publishing house is called St. Matthew's Publishing Corporation. We do textbooks. And then after so many years, we only had Kahel Press or children's book imprint just 3 years ago. So in that time, we were really exploring how contracts work, how they were drafted. So we really didn't know anything about licensing works. So it was only during the start of Kahel Press when we started understanding these things, and I was trying to understand, trying to read about contracts, and every time I would do that, I would just get a headache. So hopefully this presentation would, fast track your learning so you won't have to go through all that headache as well. Next slide, please. All right. So whenever someone asks me about contracts, and when I saw Mr. Nong's list of questions for me and Angela, I was thinking, how am I going to answer him? Well, most of my answers to his questions there were really, it depends. And there's this section in the book called The Personal MBA by Josh Kaufman that pretty much sums up what I want to share with you guys right now. So here, and it especially comes out when people ask me about pricing, like if they're going to have an outright sale of their works, how much would it be? How much are royalty rates? How much should they be in the Philippines? Or is there like a standard rate for royalties or outright payments? Well, in the Philippines, there's none. And the way this works is you can price it in any way you like, as long as, and it says here, you have the reason why, that you are able to defend it. You have a good reason to give to your audience, to your content creators, to the publishers that you're working with, so that it would be reasonable for them to accept a partnership with you. Next slide, please. So in terms of compensation for content creators, as I mentioned, it depends, right? But here are some examples of the things that that have been done that are common in practice in the publishing industry. So you have outright payments or one-time payments. You have royalties, which are based on the sales. So in terms of royalties, you have advance royalties, which are the advances against royalties. You get paid ahead of the sales. So oftentimes these are non-refundable. And then you also talk about earning out your advances. You can go past it, you can be paid more. So there's a big chance for you to be paid more as a content creator, especially if your work becomes very popular. And also if you get to exploit your rights into different types of formats. Mr. Nong also asked about scaling royalties, and we actually practice this in our publishing house. We haven't really implemented it yet because some of the content creators have not, we're still trying to get past our initial print run. So it's possible that you can have scaling royalties. And we did this because we want to incentivize our content creators, because for us, it's a partnership. If the book sells really well, we'd like to see it as an incentive for the author to also promote more their works, to also help in marketing, to find ways to be able to sell more. So we decided if they sell at least, if they go past 5,000 copies of the book, they can move from 10% to 15%. So that's just one example. I'm not saying that this is the rate for everyone. And I've also encountered, like from other publishers, a combination. So you have a one-time payment, and then they have a certain condition to be met before they turn into royalties. So next slide, please. All right. So I've had experience with some publishers that they always talk about royalties in terms of, basing it on the cover price, but you can also base it on other things. So it can be gross sales, net of discounts, net profits, actual profits. And Mr. Nong also mentioned about subsidiary rights. So this is when, this is the exciting part about publishing, that you get to explore other things that you can do with your intellectual property. So like a book, a paperback book can be um, sold to another publisher from a different country or in a different language. It can be turned into hardback. Someone can pick it up and make a show out of it. And something that we want to explore right now is like, how can we maybe put it on Spotify? Because, during the pandemic, a lot of new platforms have been they're not all new. I mean, they've just made it more, the pandemic has just made it more convenient or more attractive for us to look into these platforms. So like some people are doing audiobooks on Spotify, um, or they're making the most out of their YouTube channels as well. So you might be able to explore your current intellectual property and place it in a different platform. And I just want to mention here that there's a last line here about the non-commercial use of the print disabled for 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 people who are blind, for people who have physical disabilities. So we give it free of charge. So this is something that we're advocating because in the Philippines, we are the first partner of Bookshare. It's an international ebook platform for the print disabled. So hopefully a lot of people will also look into this. We have some publishers in other countries who have agreed to, like, if we're licensing their works or they're licensing ours, we've agreed to, like, you can just do you can upload it for use of the print disabled. It's okay. You can donate the content, but some are not so open about it because I guess in some countries like ours, in the Philippines, it's hard to convince people to create ebooks, to donate their content because there's a lot of copyright infringement going on. Next slide, please. So if we're going to talk about contracts, there are standard provisions that are often found, or for me, they're like the safety nets, the things that you need to have in your contracts. So of course, you need to have the two parties who are the people creating the agreement, the term of the contract. And Mr. Nong was asking, how long should it be? It can be, well, it's up to you how long you want it to be. So for us, we started with 2 years, and we've had to create an addendum to that because as we were exploring how to draft the contract as well and exploring new partnerships, we thought like, okay, I think 2 years is too short, especially with our publishing landscape in the Philippines. The turnout of sales for certain books was not fast enough. So we had to extend it. So we would either draft a new agreement, create an addendum or revise it. And also, you have the manner and schedule of sales reporting. I'll just go over this quickly. Non-compete clause, so that the work that your author is doing will not have the content creator will not have another work that will compete against the sales of that current book. A confidentiality clause, the termination of the contract. This can be in terms of a time period, or it can be in terms of the number of books you've sold. So if you say that you want to end the contract after you've sold maybe 3,000 copies of the book and that's it, you can do that. So it really depends. Arbitration, like where you're going to make some settlements. If there is breach in the contract, how will it be settled? How much are the penalties? And then these are like some common legal terms like severability, entire agreement, force majeure, and governing law. So I'll just highlight governing law, which means which country is your contract based in. So if you need to settle something, which country's laws would apply? All right, next slide, please. And then, all right. And then we move on to some publishing, some specific clauses related to publishing contracts. So you have territories and formats of the work will be sold in. So when we started Kahel Press, it was just, we'll just do it in the Philippines. And then we saw, we learned that we could sell we could exchange rights, sell rights to other people, as long as we had the permission of the author as well. We could work with other publishers in other countries. So after that, we had to revise our contracts. We spoke to our authors of these possibilities, and we said, "Hey, can we have um, include more territories? Look into the possibility of other formats for your work. You also have print copies, like how many you're gonna print out. What's the size of the print run? The ownership of rights, um, the obligation. So of each party, acceptance and conditions of approval, and the plan and schedule of payments, collective rights management, remainders and disposals of surplus stocks, warranties and indemnities. So, like in case there's copyright infringement and plagiarism, recognizable likeness for artworks. So, this is actually very important for us because there was an instance that an artist sent us works that were plagiarized. So we didn't know that, and it was especially helpful for us publishers that we placed this here, and we were very clear what were the penalties. So we didn't. The author, sorry, the artist was very cooperative. She was very sorry when she found out, when everyone found out. So it was something that was very easy to deal with, although it was a challenging thing to go through. Money is owing, so if there are unearned balance of the advance, so you can't terminate the contract yet until the author or the content creator settles that, and the moral rights. So next slide, please. We'll go into some of these clauses. All right. So what we mean by ownership of rights. So normally when a content creator creates a work, they own the right to it. So that would be the first thing I'd like to tackle. So it's possible that the author can keep full ownership of their work, and then they just license it to the publisher. In the Philippines, I've also seen works that there's joint ownership of rights. So you would see it in their copyright pages that, it's copyright, the author, and the publisher. So that's also a possibility. And then there's also assignment of rights of the author to the publisher. So this is basically where the author gives up ownership of the work to the publisher, and then the author can also still put certain conditions on how the work will be used, even if they've transferred the rights to the publisher. Next slide, please. All right. So in terms of schedule of payments, this is what we actually do, and you can do it in other ways. So when we give out the advances, we give an advance upon signing the contract. So that's a part of the advance, and then upon submission of the completed manuscript draft, and then approval of the final proof of the book. And then we've also had instances like during the pandemic, and especially for the pandemic, even though the content creators were not yet done with their manuscript, we advanced everything. So we paid them out to the content creators because we felt that, these were very challenging times, and a little cash would help the content creators. So, as long as you agree with it, you can do many things with your content creators as well. Next slide, please. All right. So as I mentioned earlier, and the questions that Mr. Nong proposed to us. Oh, let's go back, please. All right. And the questions that Mr. Nong raised, it really depends. Sometimes it's not just between the publisher and the content creator. If you're selling rights to another country, you also need to look into the publishing landscape of the country, in the country of the publisher you want to work with. So we've had an instance where when we bought the rights of a foreign content creator, and I would say that the rates that he gave us were much lower, because in the Philippines, the SRP for the suggested retail price, or the price for books, is normally less than 200 pesos, or less than $4. So compared to like countries like Germany, the US, their rates would be different. So if we went through with the same amount for the advance, it doesn't make sense for us. It's not going to make good business sense for us if the advance is too big, because it's not also what we give out to our local content creators, and we won't be able to recoup the costs for that. Can we go back to the slides? All right. So another thing to consider in the country is the ease of distribution, the size of the market as well, and as well as bargaining power. In the Philippines, we recognize that there is still a lot to explore in the publishing industry, and then there are still I'd like to think that we need more publishers, so that the content creators can also have more bargaining power, because right now, it's really the publishers who like set the tone for the contracts. And the more that we have publishers, more choices for the content creators, the content creators will also have more bargaining power. And then you also have to look into your bargaining power if you're a publisher, with your publisher partner as well. You also have to look into the experience of the contracting parties and the culture of the contracting parties. As I mentioned before, some publishers in other countries, they just base their royalties on the on the cover price of the books, but they probably haven't met other like for someone in the Philippines, other countries who do things differently. So you have to check, like, will it be more beneficial if you also
Okay. And okay. I will check, Angela.
Yeah, can you hear me?
It's
Yeah,
It seems that there is something wrong with Bluetooth connection. I think it's better that you can start now.
start.
With
Yeah,
you?
perfect.
Yeah,
I will
okay.
share my screen.
Yes, please. Share screen for
Okay.
Angela.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
perfect. So I start immediately.
Yes,
Okay,
please.
perfect.
Yes. Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much for having me. I'm now seeing only my presentation. I don't see anyone, so I'm talking to my screen. Hi. I'm very grateful you're having me. My name is Angela Schafte-Lavado. As I was already introduced, I'm working in Germany at the Bibliographische Institut, where I'm the rights director. So this presentation I have now, I want to show you originally is much longer. I shortened it a lot. So it has much more pages. So in case you're interested in receiving the whole presentation, please get in touch with Claudia Kaiser, and she will send you the whole presentation. So if you want to go more deeper into the subject, there's much more information in the presentation. So if you want to do that, get in touch with her. So, and then I start immediately. Because the topic is very, very large. It's contracting. Yeah. It's the foundation of everything between publisher and author.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm now focusing more on the author side, less than on the publisher side. So please excuse if I talk more directly to the author. I think the publishers that are listening can also profit from what I'm saying in direction to the authors. So I want to start really with begging you to be very careful with your contracts. Don't be afraid of contracts, because you need your contract. It can save you a lot of money, a lot of tears, a lot of bad feelings if you get your contracts right beforehand. You should really take care to read the paragraphs. Don't let anyone tell you a contract is a fixed thing. You can negotiate every contract. Almost every paragraph is that's a bit exaggerated, but a lot of paragraphs can be negotiated. There can be things can be changed. They're not carved in stone. If you don't understand what's in the contract, get to your publisher, ask him, ask a lawyer. Really be careful what you're signing, because for both sides, it can save you a lot of money and trouble. So let's start with the contract itself. I don't go into any paragraph because we don't have the time to do that. I'm really focusing on the most important things and the alternatives you have there. So it might already start with the title. You put a title, you put a working title, and then there's written, in the end, the publisher will decide about the title and the cover. And that's a good thing, because the publisher has a marketing team, he has a sales team, he knows what he's doing, hopefully. But still, you should think about putting in the contract that they consult you, that they not just put a title they like, but it's your piece of art. So they should at least take you into consideration. That would be a good thing, and you can put that into the contract. The final decision most probably will be taken by the publisher, which is okay. He's the one that pays for the book and has to earn some money out of that book. So yeah, the same with the content. You know, if you know what you want to do with your book, if you know how many illustrations, what you want the illustrations to look like, what exactly you want to tell in the book, what the outcome is, put it in the contract. The more you know, the more detailed you put it in the contract, the less discussions you have. You know, if you want all the protagonists to die in the end, you might put it into the contract to spare you any discussions about the content. What you know, put it in the contract. In case you don't know yet, you will have more discussions, and then in the end, and you should for sure take into consideration what the publisher wants you to put in the book, and in the end, he might be the one to decide because he pays. But you can put as lot of content as possible in an addendum, you know. So that would be recommendable to save you discussions. So then the duration of rights, that was interesting what Ruth said about the 2 years term, because in Germany, until a couple of years ago, we really had contracts that were until the end of life, you know, until the end of the copyright period. So that's a new thing, especially when we work together with agencies, that they put time limits. That's really quite, we don't like it as publishers, but it's better for the authors. So that they really say after 10 years, we have to renegotiate. They give us a first option for the renegotiation, but if it doesn't work out, the rights reverse. So that is something you might consider to do, but obviously it's already done in your countries. That's a really German view of mine now. So then all the rights you can grant. In Germany, that's what I'm most familiar with, we put, it's like 2-3 pages of rights you put in the contract, and that's the most important part of the contract. Which rights are you granting your publisher? So in case all the rights you're granting him, you cannot use yourself anymore. You have to wait and hope that he or she will use those rights. So in case you know that you have a different option, if you know someone that has an audio publishing house, you may talk to your publisher and tell him, okay, I don't want to grant you those rights because I already know where to put them elsewhere. I don't know if he will agree, because then he loses that money. But think about all the rights. You're not losing them, but you're giving them to the publisher, and he or she really has to do something with those rights. So don't just sign every right, but look at the rights very carefully. So adaptation rights, in specific for the illustrators, take care what kind of adaptation rights you give your publisher. It might be that he can really take out of the illustrations characters, that they can change the colors, that they can combine the illustrations with illustrations from other publishers or other illustrators. So really maybe you don't care. Maybe you say, oh, okay, it's not a piece of art. They can do whatever they want with the illustrations, but then ask for more money. The more rights you give them, the more money you should receive. If they can really use your illustrations as they like, they should pay for that right to do so. So be careful what concerns the adaptation rights. What you can do also is that you put into the contract that you want to do the adaptation. Okay, you give them the right to adapt, but you want to do it. Or if you don't want to do it, maybe you can put in the contract that you want to approve of it. So then they can adapt it, and they have to show it to you. And you can say, I don't like it. I don't agree. So that's a safety belt you still can put into the contract. So then we have electronic rights. That's normal. Every publisher wants electronic rights nowadays. That's not very new and very surprising. So then filming rights. When we work with authors, we normally get film rights. If we work with agencies, we don't get film rights, because the agency normally works with a film agency. And I must admit, I'm selling rights and I'm not a film specialist. So in case someone gives me the film rights, I most probably won't be able to do something with those rights, because I don't go to the according fairs. I'm not really into the film world. So think about it very carefully. If your publisher has never sold any film rights, it might not be such a good idea to give him the film rights, Okay. Miscellaneous rights take care also of the merchandising rights. In merchandising, there's a lot of money. Think of Star Trek. So be careful that they have to consult you before selling any merchandising rights. Yeah, and maybe you don't want your illustrations as puppets in a shop, or I don't know, or in a bed as a coverage or something like that. So don't just give away merchandising rights. Think about it carefully, or put a safety guard, meaning you have to be consulted only after approval. So then the sublicenses. This is also what Ruth already talked about. That sublicenses are the rights that the publisher, you give him or her, and that he can give to other publishers, be it translation rights, audio rights, anthology rights, whatever. So what you also can do here is that they only can give them away after your permission, not the small rights. Printing permissions, if I, as a rights person, would have to ask every time the author if I can sell a little printing permission, I wouldn't sell a printing permission anymore, because it would cost too much time. But for the big rights, like translation rights or special editions, you may be put into the contract that you have to be consulted. But then if they consult you, me as a rights person, if I see in the contract, oh, I have this right, so I'm going to try to sell it. So I make an effort. I go to the fair and I try my best. And then the author, if he tells me, no, I don't want that, it's not working like that. You do have to have a good reason why you don't agree, So you have the possibility to disagree, but then you would have to have a good reason in order to, not corrupt my work, because I'm investing time and money. So what you can also do is, if you're not certain if the publisher will really exercise every right you give him or her, you can put a clause in the contract that you will be able to recall individual rights. So if you realize that after 3 years, no audio right has been sold yet, you can tell the publisher, I want that right back. I want to take care of it myself, or I'm going to look for an agent. So this is also a safety guard for you in case you give them a lot of rights and they don't do anything with those rights. You can get those rights back. Okay, so rights and obligations of the publisher. You're not the only one that has to do something in that collaboration. The publisher also has at least to publish your book. So, and ideally in the format that you have agreed on and the time you have agreed on. I spoke in India, I spoke to some authors who told me, my God, I made a contract, I gave them all my rights, and the publisher did not publish the book and does not want to give me back my rights. So that's really horrendous. I don't know. I didn't know what to say. For me, it was like kind of logic. If you make a contract about the book, then you have to publish it. But also in the German contracts, we are having this clause, the obligation to really publish the book. If they don't publish the book, you can go to court and show them the contract, and there's a breach of contract. So they have to give you your rights back, and you look for another publisher. Okay, the revenue. Ruth already told a bit about revenue. So indeed, you have different possibilities. You have the possibility of a one-off lump sum. That's really, yeah, it should be a good lump sum. And then you give really, it's like buying a car. You know, you get 10,000 euros and you give them, you give your rights to the publisher. In case there is no time limit, it's really like forever. They can do forever with those rights what is in the contract, you know? So it should be like not such a mini small amount. To be more, if you say, okay, that's a bit too much, I don't want to give all my rights, let's talk about one format. I don't want, we talked about a hardcover, maybe they will then do a soft cover and they will do this and that. I don't want, that's too dangerous for me. So I will put into the contract, I get the lump sum only for the hardcover. And if you want to do something else, you have to consult me again. So that would also be protection for you. We had that in our case. My publishing house is a very old traditional publishing house, and I'm working with a lot of contracts from the 80s. And in that time, we had a lot of those contracts with lump sums. They were great lump sums, but still we work a lot with those illustrations. We put them in this book and that book and again and again and again. And now after a couple of years ago, we were like, okay, this is not fair anymore. We're using those illustrations so much. We have to get in touch again with the illustrators and pay them and make new contracts because it's not okay anymore. You know? Still, it was legal. It was legal. We didn't do anything wrong, but you know, you're starting to get in spheres where it's getting a bit dubious, maybe. So, okay, you can put the restriction that it's only for one format. What you can also do is a combination of a lump sum and a royalty fee. In case the publisher tells you, we are expecting like 10,000 copies. No, the book will not sell more. For those 10,000 copies, you will get 5,000 euros. But you maybe have a feeling that there's much more in this book, and you are like, okay, but if you sell more than those 10,000, I want to participate. So if you sell more than from the 10,000 and first copy, I want 2%, maybe something like that. This is what we also do now with the very well-selling illustrators. We give them a great lump sum, but then to give them the security that we're not using them, if the book sells better than expected, they can participate. So then there is royalty-based agreement. Yeah, maybe if you want to go deeper, please ask for the presentation. Ruth already told you there's different steps, like until 10,000 copies, it's 10%, 15,000 copies, 12%. We don't go from 10 to 15. That's a big step, but still every country is different. So what she already told you, there are different ways to calculate the royalty. What's the price, the net retail price of the book, which is the recommended retail price minus tax. That might be 10 euros. Then maybe you receive 10%. But if if it's calculated on the net receipts, that means that also the discount the publisher gives to the bookshops is subtracted. So a book that in the store costs 10 euros, then values 5 euros, depending on the discount they give. So accordingly, your royalty should be higher, almost double. Yeah. Okay, I hope I could make myself a bit understandable. Here is more explicitly explained how it's calculated, but I can't go deeper into this. Ebook rights in Germany, it's between 20 and 25% of the net publisher's income that goes to the author. And then you have to check, is there an author and an illustrator? Then it might be less. Maybe it's 50-50. If there are 10 authors and 10 illustrators, it's less you get. You know, that's logic. Okay. Yeah, you have to take care that there's always in the contract this paragraph for modes of usage unknown. That's like 30 years ago, we didn't know about ebooks. No, and maybe in 30 years, we're reading in the air and in clouds, I don't know. So in that case, you should the publisher has to consult you again to negotiate a pricing, what you will get, a remuneration for this new mode of usage. So, and you, in the contract, the publisher tells you, okay, I want to make a hardcover and a softcover. And for those formats, you put the royalty or the lump sum in the contract. You cannot put for every right that you're granting the publisher, you cannot negotiate for every right the royalty. That would drive everyone crazy. So I know as a publisher, I pay you for the hardcover, I pay you this royalty, for the softcover, I pay you that. And in case I want to make an anthology or a film or whatever myself, then we have to renegotiate. Yeah, we have to talk again. So then what will you get when the book is licensed to another publisher abroad, when the translation rights are sold? In Germany, what I know is between 50 and 60%. You know, if you're working with an agency, you always get better conditions. That's normal, meaning you have an agency that negotiates for you the conditions in the contract. But in between 50 and 60% should be normal, should be what you're getting. And if there are if there are two authors, everyone gets 25%. So that's the overall percentage that is then divided between all the participants, all the rights givers. So nomination of originator, I don't know if in Indonesia, in the bylaw, the publisher is obligated to put your name in your book. In Germany, it's like that. But we still have this in the contract. We have to put the name of the author and illustrator in the book. And like if we take something out of the book, we still have to put the name. If we are like, okay, we are making a game and we cannot put your name on every little piece of the game, which would be ridiculous. We have to put it in the contract as well, that in certain cases, we don't have to put your name. So, and another important thing, if the book is dumped or pulped or out of print, make sure that the publisher informs you, because, and not only information, but that in those cases, you can get back your rights, either automatically or asking for the rights. Because the worst thing that can happen to you is that the book is not on the market anymore, it's dumped, pulped, or out of print, and you don't get back your rights. That would be really horrendous. So take care that you can, that's all written here, that the rights revert, or that you can withdraw the rights. Okay. 2 quick words. Do you hear me still? Is it okay? Can you hear me? Yeah, okay. Okay. Quick words about licensing. There are 2 options of licensing. That's also Ruth already said, I think. What's the difference between those 2 forms of licensing? There's pure licensing, which means that I'm really selling the right. Only the right. I sell the right to a Dutch publisher to translate your book. And he will produce it, he will sell it, he will market the book. And then there is also an example how to calculate such an offer. It's a bit, it's a bit similar as the calculation of the royalty, but I cannot go deeper into it. So, and what's your share? Your share is what there has been put in the contract, the 50 or the 60%. First of the advance payment that I get from the Dutch publisher, and then from every royalty statement, you get your 50 or 60%. So then there is co-edition licensing. When is co-edition licensing done? I did almost only co-edition licensing in my former career as a children's books publisher. If you have books that are very complicated, like with sound elements, touch and feel, they're, I don't know, very expensive in the production. There are countries that only want 2,000 copies or 3,000 copies or 1,000 copies, and they cannot afford the print run. There has to be at least 10,000 copies printed, otherwise it wouldn't work financially. So me as a licensed person, I'm going to the fair and I'm looking for different publishers that he wants 2,000, they want 2,000, so I can get together those 10,000 and I will make the production for them. They will send me the files with the text in their language, and I will send all that to the printer, probably in China. In my case, it was China. And then I will send all those books to the different countries. So I do sell the right to translate and to do all the same things, except the right to produce the book, because that's what I'm going to do. And what's your share in, and then there is a slide what you should take into consideration when you want to do co-editions, but you can read that maybe later. And how would look an offer like? You can put the delivery until the port, until including the tax process, or until your company. That's also things you can include into a license co-edition offer. And what's your share? So let's say I sell a book for €5, which is a lot of money, to a French publisher. You will not receive 50 or 60% of those €5 because in that price, there is the production, there's the paper, the sound element, whatever. There is a little amount, there's a certain amount of license fee, and from that part, you will get your 50 or 60%, not from the whole. Okay.
Okay,
Angela.
Now I'm done. I'm done.
Okay.
Thank you
very much. That's very nice. Good.
Okay.
Sorry, Ruth. There is something wrong with the connection, and then we went straight to Angela. And do you want to to say some more things to complete your?
Just one more slide.
Okay.
I just wanted
Please.
to share. Yes. Can you show the
Yeah,
slide
more
that has
slide of.
I go out.
Yes. Okay. Please one slide for Angela. For Ruth. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Which slides?
The slide with two photos.
Slides with two photos. Yeah.
I think it's
Okay.
the
Okay.
last. One of the
Okay.
last.
Please.
Okay.
Please, Angela. Ruth, please.
Okay. Can the production team show my presentation?
Yeah,
It's already.
Oh, okay.
It's already shown. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Already,
Okay. I
yeah,
just can't
okay.
see it. So
Yeah.
I just want to share two of my resources. Actually, I had more. It's just that I couldn't go back to the office to get some more books. But these are two good books that you can start with. So the book that I really started with was the Clark's Publishing. Sorry, I can't even remember the name, but it's the Clark's Publishing Agreements. So this is basically a book that has templates for different kinds of publishing contracts, and they have a general book contract, and that's what we really started with. And as I mentioned before, when I was starting out, I was reading about all of these things about creating a contract, and my head was always hurting after I was reading it. So the way we started was really we basically put everything that was in that book. So all of the subsidiary rights, it was so long. And since in the Philippines, not many content creators are familiar with contracts, they were also shocked. Like, I've never seen a contract this long before. But for other publishers in other countries, they're already used to having so long contracts. So ours, I think, our first draft of the contract was 16 pages, and that just shocked everyone. And we're seeing along the way, like, okay, we don't need everything. We weren't able to do all of these things, so it would be more fair if we talk to the content creators. You can do this better than us, or you have the opportunity to work with other people to explore your intellectual property. So, like I said, it really depends. When you're working with a contract, you can negotiate. You can, it's basically the relationship you have with whoever you're contracting with, and it's a learning process. So, I liked Angela's first slide. Said there, don't be afraid of contracts, and I really want to make it a thing that hashtag contracts are friends, so that you can you can work better with your publishers, with the content creators, and with other people in your publishing journey. And the other book that I have there, it's a very good book in terms of the publishing as a business. They are my idols in publishing, so I do recommend getting The People's Guide to Publishing by Joe Biel of Microcosm Publishing. So it talks about like different aspects of the publishing business, and then at the end they also have their own contracts templates, and then they explain it very well. I like some parts that it's the first time I've seen it, that there's like a checkbox for the contract, so that the content creator knows that there are these options, and specifically which one you are choosing, or which one you agreed on with your publisher. So yeah, hopefully the presentation will help you. Thank you.
And just move on to a better planning in the next contract. Is it clear? This is the question.
Okay.
Oh.
I think you can still have an addendum for that.
Okay.
Place it in your in the addendum to that original contract that you want to place a new, like a term.
Okay.
To make things clear, like how long you're going to work together.
Yeah. Okay.
But then, in that case, the publisher has to agree to sign the addendum.
Yeah.
So in case you have a contract without termination and without chances to get your rights back in case of, and your publisher is not a nice person, it might end up difficult.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
It's difficult.
I think this is where associations of content creators, like illustrators or authors, will come in to also somewhat.
It's a good idea.
They can educate the publisher. In the Philippines, we have this. It's called the National Book Development Board. So you can also approach them for advice. Different associations can put pressure on the publisher to also, do what's fair.
Okay.
Yeah, and if the rights are not used, you can go to court and you can say, okay, listen, I gave them all my rights without a limit, but they don't use it. I would assume that a judge would say, okay, you have to give the rights back.
Yeah, that is a good idea too, because it will be very expensive, to go to court. But anyway, we have to learn, of course. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, then the other question to Angela: how to enforce the power to revise the contract when the publisher is standing their ground? Do we leave and go to another publisher? How do this content creator should do when this situation occur? Do you have any tips, especially when it comes to illustrators and not authors? I think it's also fit for for Ruth too. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Is it clear?
Yes.
I didn't hear it very well. Did you, Ruth, understand well?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
So it's basically how can the author bargain or make negotiations and changes in the contract, and especially if the publisher is not so open,
willing to do so.
not budging.
It always depends on how important you are and how important your book is, and how does he really want you. you know, it's like always like that. The more pressure you can put, or if you have another publisher that might be interested, that would be the ideal situation. You know, you say, okay, I'm going to someone else. The best thing is always to talk, like Ruth says, to be like, listen, understand, da da da. If he doesn't want to, he doesn't want to. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. But
And
yeah.
for us in the Philippines, I really wish we had more publishers so that there would be these sorts of negotiations so that the content creator will have more bargaining power because as I mentioned here, it's mostly the publisher since, you know, in our heads, we're the ones paying a lot of money and the content creator isn't the one putting out the money. So
but it's also in Germany like that.
yeah,
It's
you might also
you don't have 10 publishing houses that want to do your book. You're happy to have one, and you accept probably most of the things they want you to accept. Yeah,
Okay.
as well.
so yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you can also look into the side of the publisher. Why does he want this clause to be in this way?
Yeah.
There might be a reason for it. It might be in their experience that they weren't able to recoup their costs right away if you're talking about like compensation. But I think, you know, things will change after a very long time, especially in terms of the bargaining power of either parties.
Okay, this is a very last question, very important. This one, how if the publisher cancel the publication for certain reason, especially due to COVID-19 pandemic? It's a kind of force majeure or something, but I don't know. It may happen now.
I think it's possible to use force majeure.
Yeah, force majeure.
As a reason for
Yeah,
that
sure.
because here there are publishing houses that are closing because of the pandemic, and you can't, you know, there's really no book project if there's no publishing house anymore.
Yeah, sure.
So it's possible because if they spend more at this time, it would be difficult for the publisher to continue their operations.
Okay, so that is a good point that force majeure should be put in a contract. Okay, and then about arbitration, I have an experience, my own experience. A Korean publisher wants that the governing law is United States, not Korea, not Indonesia, but United States. But it's too far from Indonesia, and it will be too costly. That's why I choose another country like Singapore application, and it is accepted. So it will be easier. So from Indonesia to Singapore is close. Korea to Singapore is not far compared to United States. So it's a kind of compromise. Yeah, choosing another country as a governing law.
For the governing law.
Yeah. Okay. That is my experience.
Do they have
Their
a
office.
publishing company
Office
based
there.
in the US?
No.
Is that why they chose the US?
No, they don't have, but they want it to be to be United States. I don't know why. Yeah.
Well, I'm not too familiar with that, but I think because the default for contracts, wherever you're signing it, that's the governing law.
Yeah.
But
that-
if you
that
have
is-
like two countries working together,
Yeah.
I would think that, you know, it's just either one of those countries.
Yeah. In
whose
fact, it is.
governing law
Yeah, it
would
is
be in
Indonesia.
If they
The
want
the
the United
proprietor
States,
is
you have to
Indonesia.
go there
Yeah, that
to
is-
put your complaint,
Yeah.
and you would not do that.
Yeah.
I would never sign a contract
Yes, of course.
if the other party is based in US and it's their product. Okay, I have to do that. But otherwise, I would never sign a contract based
Yeah,
in the
the-
US because
let
I would
me-
never put a complaint there.
Let me tell you the situation. It is I'm the seller, the Korean publisher is the buyer, and it's very good money, but they want they because it should be Indonesia, not not Korea, not the United States, because it is the property of Indonesia. But then the money is very good. So, and then think of United States, but then Singapore is okay for me because it's clear to Indonesia. Because otherwise I cannot get that big money from the Korean publisher.
But do they give you an explanation?
No, but
why
but
they
then
want that?
It is their tradition, But then they
Their
accept
tradition.
to have the Singapore as a country of application. It is very unique, but it happens. Yeah. But then it's okay for me to accept Singapore. It is no problem because and they give really good money every year. Every year.
I just find it strange that they're using the laws of another country that does not govern.
Yeah.
Because, they're not from that country. They're not.
But it is an international.
Registered in that country. So how can the law have any hold on them? So it's saying I'm Filipino, and the Philippine laws, and I have Philippine laws that I want to apply to a foreign person.
It is an international office. International Office of Application of Singapore. It happens.
International Office.
International Office of Application.
Education.
So, for application, not education. Application.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Application.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I think the time is up now. It is 4 minutes longer, but no problem at all. It's very nice having your presentation. Very useful, both presentations, very deep. And I don't know, but this is very important, and I hope we can share and to make more publishers, authors know about these contracts. Yeah, hopefully then we may find a way. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
See you next time somewhere.
# contracts are friends.
Okay, good. Yes. So don't
I
do
will
that
check that out.
Good. And don't make a very long contract. 4 pages.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, okay.
Ciao.
Okay, thank you very much. Bye-bye. Yeah, bye-bye.
Have a good
night. Have a good
Congress
time too.
in the
Okay.
next days.
Yes,
Bye-bye.
thank you.
Mr. Nong, bye-bye.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Bye.